everyone, this is Fish Geek Girl, back with another video. This time I wanted to start out with a fish that I'm really pumped about lately, and that fish is known as the ricefish. So ricefish are any species in the genus Orizeus. They are a type of fish that are likened a lot to killifish and rainbow fish in how they breed. But they're actually their own thing in a way. They're from the order Balaniformes, so they're actually more closely related to half-beaks than your toothy carps, like the Cyprinodontiformes. Got our cat here in the background. So ricefish actually get the name Orizeus, the genus, because they are found in rice paddies oftentimes. They're found in South and Eastern Asia. They're very popular in Japan, specifically the species Orizeus latipes. Yeah, I don't know what people pronounce it. People just call it rice, Japanese rice fish, and that's probably just to avoid the Latin. But at any rate, these guys are also known as the Japanese Medaka. They have been bred for probably centuries in Japan, and they are bred almost like goldfish have been, in the sense that they are bred for different color forms and fin forms, and nowadays there's just hundreds of varieties, it seems like, and there's always new ones coming out that people are tinkering with. A lot of times they're also considered similar like guppies and how they're bred. But they're viewed from above oftentimes in like ponds. They're named after different koi varieties because they similarly appreciate the different patterns from above. Things like the red caps, and then there's things like tricolors and things like that. I will not try to pronounce some of these names. If you are interested at all, highly recommend Amazonas and a few features on Medakas, and they're excellent. Rising in popularity. I discovered them a couple years ago. When I started at my aquatics department, I was trying to figure out what nano species and things to breed. So ricefish are actually really excellent because they're like the perfect fish, in my opinion. They don't need heater. Room temperature is fine. It can be pretty cold, which is why they're actually great for ponds and pretty cold water tolerant. As long as you're in a warmer area. Places like California, they can always keep them out year round. So a lot of the Japanese ricefish groups are actually like centered in California, because that's where a lot of people really are into them lately. Sort of slowly trickling over. So I'm in Michigan. We're just now sort of getting some of these more interesting varieties. I have like midnight Medakas right now. I've got sparkle blues, platinums, oranges, gold. It's probably one of the earlier varieties, the goldish color. The natural form of this fish is actually kind of like a silvery gray. So nothing to brag about, but from that they've been able to make all these crazy, beautiful forms. Yeah, the colors are the other reason to keep them. For being such a small fish, even the fry at like a couple weeks old, some of them, the midnight Medakas, when they hatch, are like pitch black. So they show color from like a young age, and they're just really easy to breed, easy to rear. So when I said they were kind of like killifish and rainbow fish, how they breed, I meant that people use mops oftentimes to spawn them. They have a unique thing where the female will actually carry around clusters of eggs after they're fertilized for a while. Usually they spawn in the morning. I'll see the females all clustered up with eggs. I have some options. When you see that, you could, if you're impatient like me, sometimes I will net the female and pluck the eggs off of her myself, because I'm impatient, and I'll put them in like a little deli cup and some methylene blue. Otherwise, you can let them do their thing in plants. They can use spawning mops. Now, I found that the yarn mops are not as enticing to them. They seem to really like to scrape their eggs off on something a little more abrasive. So I'll get into that in a little bit. So continuing with why these are excellent fish to keep. I said cold water tolerant, very colorful, so and easy to breed. So you can do a lot with a little bit of space. That little closet that's room temperature, you could have rows of like 2.5, 5 gallons of these guys breeding, no problem. They'll say, groups of 10 or 12, you'd want probably like 10 to 20 gallons, but I tend to get away with a lot less than that. They do tend to do better in groups. They show better in groups. I usually, if I'm breeding them, I'll at least have a trio, but they can be grouped up 6 to a dozen or more. I've raised a lot of their babies in 2.5 gallons, and I will honestly get them up to like sellable size and pull 30 of them out of a 2.5 gallon. It's insane. So they don't need a lot of space. They readily take prepared diets. They will eat crushed flake foods of all sorts of varieties, oftentimes mix in baby brine for the breeders. And then for the babies, pretty easy. A lot of times I will offer a powdered fry food, like Sarah Micron. At first, I actually discovered this when I started my aquatics department. It was used a lot with tadpoles, and actually a lot of fish seem to do well with it. Otherwise, I do things like golden pearls. So when you're harvesting the eggs, it takes about 2 weeks for them to incubate, depending on temperature, give or take. They're fertile. I don't seem to have a lot of issues with fungus or anything like that. You could pluck the eggs from a spawning mop if you have made a spawning mop. Otherwise, you would just move plants around, because after a few weeks, it'll be full of eggs, and you can just take the moss or the hornwort or whatever and just move to another tank, as long as there's no other fish that'll eat the fry. The adults will eat the fry. So one of the reasons that, they're easy to breed, right? But so they're likened to guppies, but some people find guppies are like too darn easy to breed. You end up with hundreds of them, and you're like, what do I do with these? The thing about Medakas that's really nice is you don't have to pull the eggs or fry, and so, if they'll breed, and then if you don't want a lot of babies, you could just take as much as you want and raise those out and then stop, or you don't have to do that at all. So these guys are just, the other thing is that they're super adaptable, and if you are raising them, they're very quick to mature. These guys are oftentimes used as model organisms because they do mature so quickly. About 2 to 4 months they're mature, ready to breed. However, they do have a little bit of a less of a lifespan, being a small fish. Typically about 1.5 to 2 years is about average. But yeah, these guys are super hardy. Even though maybe they don't live that long, but the whole time they're alive, they're really tough. They don't really necessarily need a special pH or anything. I use my tap water here to chlorinate it. pH is 8+. Get eggs, fertile eggs, breeding activity. They could do lower pH if you wanted to. I've definitely done them like 7.5. I've not really done them too acidic. You don't have to. So there's really no need to put them more acidic unless you would just have that water coming out of the tap like that. What I use for filtration, I use sponge filters like this. One thing is that sponge filters are pretty much what I use for all my fish tanks. They're just super easy, low maintenance, gentle flow. You can adjust the flow if you want. I will use this as a spawning hot spot. Like, I've actually found them frustratingly. I'll put like acrylic yarn mops in there, and instead of the yarn mop, they'll use the sponge filter. Like I said, the abrasive stuff is what they like. So, that being said, I want to show you real quick just how I make a spawning mop for these guys that's more abrasive that they'll actually use. If you're not really into hunting down the eggs, I mean, that's unnecessary. It stresses out the fish anyway. If you're pulling the females out, plucking the eggs off, I don't necessarily recommend that. What you might find is that you can make a more abrasive mop that they'll use more often. You want to limit probably the amount of live plants you have, because when you have the live plants and the mops, they'll tend to use both, and you might not find all the eggs. I tend to try to stick to more of the mops when I do use them. Here's a completed mop. Kind of looks like a little spaceship, or a little octopus, or a little jellyfish or something. So essentially what I am doing is I am taking a pool noodle from the dollar store, taking some scrubby pads from the dollar store that are these flat green ones, and what I'll do is I'll cut about a couple inches. So it'll not be pretty. Kind of this part here. Then basically I'll take something like this, and you can adjust the length. You can have longer strips. You can have shorter ones. I tend to go shorter, so a lot of times I'll cut this in half, roughly, and then I will cut little strips from this. So, once you have all these different little strips like this, you don't need glue or anything crazy. You just shove them into the center of the pool noodle. I'm probably not going to be the best at tutorials right off the bat here because I'm mostly just trying to get you guys interested in these fish, but maybe I'll play around so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better, different shots and things like that. But at any rate, I basically just shove them in there so it's kind of like this, and if you want, you could try to use hot glue or something, but you really don't need to. So, I think my cat's about to join me. Kyo really likes pool noodles. Don't you, Kyo? Mister. Oh no. Yeah. If you have a cat, watch out with the pool noodles, because this is like crack to them. This little one loves to chew the pool noodles. I have to hide this from him when I'm done. So yeah, this is essentially, a little quick and easy. Doesn't have to be super pretty. Maybe I'll shove one more or two more pieces in here, and it gets the job done. So next I will show you a little bit how I pull the eggs and what it looks like. So I'll flip the camera here and go look around at some fish tanks. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you how I collect eggs from different types of rice fish. One thing I also forgot to mention, these guys are very community friendly. So on top of being beautiful, hardy, easy to breed, colorful, awesome, they get along with other small fish just fine. So I have them in here with some panda guppies, some hill stream loaches. I'm actually mixing two varieties of Ricefish right now, but the more mature ones in here are a type of orange, which are actually a really high quality orange. There's different terms for that, I forget. It wasn't sold to me as anything particularly special. I've also got red caps here that are a little bit younger. So anyway, you can see here, the thing in action. These are some of my mops, quote unquote. And here we're gonna go ahead and check them. So typically I'll tip them like this, and then I will kind of poke around and see if I see anything. Yep, there's an egg right there. Yep. When they're close to the 2-week mark, you'll start seeing eyes and stuff, but when they're more early on, so you can see that right there, that is an egg. Just kind of a yellowish. Obviously if they were white and fell apart, if you touch them when they burst, they're no good. Like rainbow fish and killifish, you can just pluck them out of the mop, like so. It's a little hard to do this one-handed. Here we go. So you can see here. Oh, focus. There we go. There's a nice little Ricefish egg. So what I'll do is I'll typically have cups, incubate them. I actually have one right here that these guys are just hatching. These are the 2-week mark. These are, I believe, the orange ones first hatching out. And yeah, there's lots of them in there. They look awesome. I'll start out babies typically when they just hatch like this. Like I said, the micron, golden pearls for about 2 weeks. And then as soon as they hit about the 2-week mark, which is kind of the age for a lot of small egg scatters and stuff as well, they'll take baby brine and microworms. So I'll usually mix that in as soon as they're big enough to take them down. So yeah, that's how you collect. So you don't need much space. This is a 2.5 gallon where I have a trio of sparkle blue. They're really just kind of a sparkly orangish. I don't know. That's what I bought them as, but they're you can appreciate from above. I think it's because they have the bluish sparkles. So they're an orangish base, but then they have a blue sparkle to them, which is really nice. So here's the mops that I was showing you how to make. This was another idea I had for making mops, and it works too. I think I just used some craft foam, the floral department, or wherever. If you go to Michael's or whatever craft store you choose, you could do that. And I poked holes in it and hot glued them in. It works. It's not pretty, but the idea is that you want something abrasive and brush against. So what oftentimes I find is that they will actually, yeah, they'll use their sponge. I think that's an egg right there. Maybe. Yep, so there's an egg right there on the sponge. And they just, sometimes they're stubborn and they'll do that. I always check sponges for that reason. It's my little trick, little tip of the day. Check your sponges if you've got these rice fish. So, yeah. But yeah, they don't need much room. 2.5 is plenty for a trio. And I'm getting lots of eggs out of these guys all the time. So, all told, there's about 30-ish species of Rhizius. Even though I talked a lot about the fancy ones, the Japanese Madakas, which, by the way, you can keep endless varieties of those. You can mix and match them. They're all the same species. I would try to keep the same strains if you're trying to breed pure. But there's the other common species that you see in the trade are Rhizius waware. Daisy's ricefish are also really excellent wild form of ricefish and just as easy to breed. I really like all of the species. I would love to keep more and more of them. I have a Rhizius dancina, which are the Indian ricefish. There's Javan ricefish. There's I'm actually getting in some dwarf Madakas, a Rhizius minutulus or something like that. So I'll be sure to feature those guys soon. Kyo says thanks for watching. He's gonna go tackle pool noodle now. Hope you guys are inspired to keep some Rhizius, some rice fish. You got like even just a few 5 gallons, some extra space like that. You can do a lot with them. And during pond season, they make really, really great pond inhabitants, so you can enjoy from above. So thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.